All right, here we go. The most important person in my life, my greatest teacher, was my younger sister, Adrienne. And she taught me what I now call the ELF method, how to survive life's greatest challenges. And let's see if the clicker works. We'll find out. There you go. On May 16th, 2001, I walked into my living room to find my 15-year-old sister, Adrienne, curled up in a fetal position on the floor, crying. And this was a kid who never cried, so I knew immediately something was wrong. We went to see our pediatrician. He took one look at her and sent us to the local hospital, to the ER. And as she was being wheeled in for a CAT scan, she said, "Hey, sissy, watch it be cancer." And I laughed and said, "Bite your tongue." And she laughed too. And we had no idea how prophetic her joke would turn out to be, because May 16th was day one of her cancer journey. And she lived 147 days with that diagnosis. And in that 147 days, that young lady taught me how to live. She taught me what I now call the ELF method. E is for embrace the situation, or as I like to call it when it comes to cancer, embrace the suck. L means to live in the present. And F is for find and follow your North Star. Because when life changes in an instant, these are three choices that we can still control: how we meet it, how we live within it, and how we keep moving forward. So let's talk about the first E in ELF. Embrace the situation. That does not mean that you like it. It doesn't mean that it's fair. It's not something you necessarily asked for. But embracing the situation means that you are looking at it honestly and deciding how you're going to show up in the moment. And I learned that lesson long before cancer. When Adrienne was 8 years old, she came to visit me for what was supposed to be a 2-week Christmas vacation in Los Angeles. The day after Christmas, our mother called and said she didn't want to be a mother anymore. Overnight, I became my sister's legal guardian. I was 22 years old. I had a college degree. I had a great apartment, but I had very little money, no job stability, and lived with a raging alcoholic. Becoming my sister's parent at 22 was not part of my life plan. But life doesn't ask us if we're ready, right? Life gives us something and says, "Here, this is yours, deal with it." And I remember this very special moment that helped me embrace being Adrienne's parent. She had been living with me for a few months, and we went out to a restaurant for her birthday. And she had a complete meltdown. I mean, kicking and screaming. It was the kind of thing where people stop eating, stare at you, and think what a terrible parent you are. She had turned 9 years old, but she was acting like a 2-year-old. So I dragged her out of that restaurant. We went home, and she started yelling at me. This little girl said, "I don't want to live with you anymore. I want to move back to Alabama." And in that moment, I knew I had to embrace being her parent. And I told her to pack her bags. I made a reservation that I couldn't afford to pay for. And then I waited for what was one of the longest hours of my life. And she was throwing things around the room. And finally she came out and she said, "Sissy, I don't want to go. I want to stay." And I said, "Okay, but here's the deal. I have to be your parent first, then your sister, and one day when you grow up, I really hope to be your friend." And those boundaries became the blueprint for our relationship. And that same lesson about embracing the situation showed up years later. So one of the chemotherapy drugs that Adrienne was prescribed had a known side effect of permanent hearing loss. Now, she was a budding musician, and music was her life. And when she heard this news, she became unglued, and she looked right at her doctor and said, "I'd rather be dead than deaf." In that moment, she advocated for herself more than most adults ever do. And that is what embracing the situation looks like. Don't deny the hard stuff. Don't minimize the pain, but decide who you're going to be and how you're going to show up. Embracing the situation, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're passive. It doesn't mean there's resignation. It's just being honest about what's going on. And all of us will face moments like this. Maybe not this diagnosis, I sure hope not. But we're all going to face hard things. And the question is not, would I have wanted this? The question is, this is here. What am I going to do now? The L in ELF is to live in the present. And a lot of people think living in the present means pretending like nothing's wrong. And Adrienne didn't do that. She knew what she was facing, and she kept right on living. She didn't ask for permission to live her life. So let's see if my pointer works. Oh, it does. Great. So the night before chemotherapy, she shaved off her head into 4 mohawks and called it her quad hawk, because she decided if we're doing this whole cancer chemotherapy thing, she was going to do it on her terms. Also, we discovered pretty early on that dogs visited the oncology ward on Mondays. And so Adrienne decided, that's my chemo day, because if you're going to do chemo, you might as well do it on a dog day. And that was her mindset through this whole thing. As David so adequately pointed out, she met her favorite musician, Dave Navarro, not once, but twice. The first time on The Tonight Show, the second time on her Make-A-Wish Day. And whenever she was checked into the hospital, because then it was all inpatient chemotherapy, she would say, when am I getting out of here? Because I've got people to see, places to go, and things to do. You see, she kept right on living. And she was alive. She was alive with humor, with the dogs, with music, with friends. And she was alive in the sheer stubborn determination to keep being herself. One of the most dangerous things as human beings is we say things to ourselves like this: I'll call my friend when life slows down, or I'll go do that fun stuff when work gets easier. I'll feel happy when that scan comes back negative. I'll be happy someday. But someday, it's not guaranteed at all, right? We don't know how many days we're going to get. And I hate cheating and looking at my notes, but I've got some important things I want to share. I want you, if you take away nothing, to remember that this moment you have right now, whatever's going on, this imperfect, messy moment, it's still your life. And Adrienne understood that better than any adult I've ever met, because she didn't confuse being afraid with being absent. She was afraid sometimes. She was tired often. And she was angry occasionally. But she kept on showing up for her life, no matter what. So the L and L ask all of us, are you right now living in the present? And I'll give you a little hint. And this is oversimplifying, and I know it, but depression is often about the past, and anxiety is often about the future. See, Melissa, what did I tell you? I was going to choke up. You got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, you did.
You were? Okay. Oh, okay, my clicker didn't work. I was all excited. It was, there we go. Yeah, about depression? Depression's often about the past. Anxiety is often about the future. It's a little oversimplification, but. So let's talk about the F and L. Find and follow your North Star. When Adrienne came to live with me, my North Star was being her parent. It was hands down the clearest calling of my life. I had to protect her, guide her, advocate for her, love her. And that responsibility gave my life direction. Being Adrienne's parent asked more of me than I thought I had to give. It made me stronger, more resilient, and more purposeful than I'd ever been before. And then during cancer, Adrienne's North Star was clear too. She was going to beat cancer, and she was going to go to college. She never saw herself as just a patient. She was a writer. She was an artist. She was a budding musician. She was a student. She was a young woman with a future in mind. And here's another thing to write down. She wasn't only fighting against something, right? Beating cancer. She was fighting for something. She was fighting for the life she wanted. She had dreams, and she fully intended to keep on living them. And sometimes when you get seriously ill, the world shrinks us down to the illness. She is a cancer patient. He is a diabetic. But Adrienne was never just cancer. Adrienne was a 15-year-old living with cancer. She was always still Adrienne. And when Adrienne died, I had to find a new North Star. And if you guys thought I choked up before, just wait. This is the hardest slide for me. When the person who gave your life purpose and direction is gone in an instant, the grief makes you feel untethered. It's like swimming in the open sea without a lifeboat during a tsunami. I was completely lost when she died. And eventually my North Star became founding Blue Faery because I had to do something with this loss. And I also had to do something with all this love I have to give in my heart. And Blue Faery became a way that I could still show up for Adrienne by showing up for patients and families and caregivers and anyone who needs more hope and more guidance and more support with their liver cancer diagnosis. A North Star is not just a dream, it's a direction. It's what you follow when life gets dark. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to ask yourself, what is your North Star right now? Not 5 years from now, but right now. Because the thing about North Stars, as we saw, that was my previous one, this is my current one, our North Star changes because we change throughout our life. Adrienne lived 147 days with her diagnosis. And she lived more in that 147 days than most people do in a lifetime. She had courage, grace, humor, and dignity, an extraordinary ability to keep showing up for her life, even when she knew she was dying. And she did know at one point she was dying, and she decided not to tell me. So when I think about what she left us, I always come back to ELF. Embrace the situation. What's going on in your life right now? Be honest about it so you can figure out how you're going to meet the moment. Live in the present. Do not delay joy until life gets easier. Because what if life doesn't get easier? And find and follow your North Star. Let purpose pull you forward, even as pain is pulling you back. Because the truth is, none of us know how many days we're going to get. 147 days? 18 months? Adrienne got 15 years, 6 months, and 1 day. If she were alive today, she would have turned 40 2 weeks ago. We don't know how much time we're going to have, but we all have today. So I want you to ask yourself, wherever you are, whatever reason, what made you show up today, is what situation do you need to embrace? How can you live more in the present? And what is your North Star today? Now I'm going to cry. Thank you.